It knows how to hunt. I know how to survive.
Prey, directed by Dan Trachtenberg, just recently released on Disney Plus and is dubbed as the new Predator prequel movie. The story takes place 300 years ago and follows a young Comanche woman who wants nothing more than to become a hunter just like her brother. Naru was trained as a healer, which basically makes everyone in her tribe doubt that she'll ever become a hunter. But one day when a predator lands nearby her settlement, she takes this as a sign that she's ready to prove herself. Now, as someone who really enjoyed watching some of the Predator movies over the years, I was really interested to see this brand new take on the series. And yes, I even watched the Alien vs Predator movies, which even though weren't the greatest movies, were still entertaining for what they were. However, this movie seemed very different from what we've come to expect and what we've ever seen done with the franchise before. In fact, it's actually the first movie in a Hollywood movie franchise to star an all Native American cast. It's also a period piece involving other storylines with colonizers in it, but regardless of how different it is, most people will be wondering how great this movie actually is. And I'm happy to say that after watching it, not only do I think this movie is great, but I also think it's one of the best Predator movies ever made. And I know that actually might sound a little crazy for some hardcore Predator fans, so let's discuss. One of my favorite parts about this movie is the build-up that it has to the Predator reveal. This for me has always been a key feature that makes a Predator movie great, and this one might just do that better than any other that came before it. Predator is actually in this movie very sparingly for the first 45 minutes or so. So there's this really great build-up and discovery that happens along the way that eventually lead to some really great action scenes. And because Predator is used so sparingly in the first half of the film, a lot of the focus is on Naru. And this is what Prey might just do better than any other Predator movie that has come before it. Amber Midthunder, who plays Naru, really does an amazing job with her character here and carries the vast majority of the film. Her character has a really interesting journey here, as Naru is a really intelligent person who has great tactical awareness and planning. This movie throws a lot at her, as not only does she have to battle Predator, but nature herself, as well as some of the French colonizers. These three factors kept the movie feeling fresh while also allowing some time between the three of them to allow them to breathe. It really does feel like a breath of fresh air that an action movie like this really takes the time it needs to tell the story that it wants to tell. I feel like a lot of action movies lately feel the need to cram as many action sequences into the film as possible, whereas this one only focuses on having a few set pieces that are mostly all pretty cleverly thought out, which really plays into Naru's ability to plan. Because of this, we get at least 3 really well crafted action scenes in the film, with the final fight being very clever that was well set up throughout the movie. It's nice to see a movie like this be really thoughtful in its approach, because that's what Naru would need to do to get out of some of these situations. She's almost always put into situations in the film where she's at a disadvantage, so seeing her improvise was a lot of fun. Speaking of stuff that's a lot of fun, Predator in this might have some of my favorite action scenes out of any movie that's come out this year. Since this is a Predator prequel, there's a decent amount of time spent with Predator studying nature. And with the title of the film being what it is, you might imagine what some of those themes are here. I won't spoil anything here, but there are 2 scenes involving French colonizers that had my jaw hitting the floor. And what's even more impressive is that the best action scene in the film, in my opinion, didn't even involve the Predator, which for me really solidifies why this is the best Predator movie to date. Now, since no movie is perfect, let's quickly talk about some of the things that I think that this movie could have done better. And thankfully, these are all relatively small things, with the first one being some of the visual effects in the film. I think overall this movie actually does a pretty decent job with the VFX in both practical and computer generated versions. However, I did sometimes find it a little distracting with the CGI of the animals, but it made sense that they had to do that for the scenes that they were in. Another thing that I think could have been done a bit better was some of the acting from a few of the side characters in the movie. But to be honest, the majority of the main cast were all really great, and as mentioned before, Amber Midthunder was phenomenal. But I also thought that the actor who played her brother in Dakota Beavers brought some great energy to the film as well. Also, the moment-to-moment story could sometimes feel a little bit predictable as well, but predictability isn't always necessarily a bad thing if the execution is there, and it certainly was in this film. Overall, Prey really is a great movie, and I would certainly recommend it to anyone, even if you're not a Predator fan. So I'm gonna give Prey an 8.5 out of 10. I actually ended up watching this film with some people who aren't nearly as big of a Predator film as I am, and some of them liked it even more than I did, which honestly speaks volumes to how well crafted this film is. Anyways, I'm curious to know if you've seen Prey, and if you have, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. And if you really like this video, be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this on movies and video games. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Besides the difficulty, one of the things you always hear about in From Software games are the bosses, and Elden Ring's boss battles are just so well thought out and designed, with the Millennia boss fight being, for me, the clear standout amongst some insanely great bosses. Now, is it the best boss fight of the year? As of right now, I would certainly say so.